Hello, everyone. It is a Tuesday, and we are here with a very special guest, Leslie Zemenek. Now, you're probably wondering where I found Leslie. We found her. I actually had a reading from Leslie years ago. I mean, maybe like 20 years ago, when I was first getting into magical stuff, and I met Leslie at a bookstore class or something like that. So Leslie is, I'm going to say palm reader, but Leslie says no. What do you do?
Well, the technical term is that I am a hand analyst, and that is the term my teacher came up with to differentiate it from palm reading, because when people think of palm readers, they think of people telling you how long you're going to live by looking at your lifeline and looking at this little side of your hand to tell you how many children you're going to have and those kinds of things. And what I do is not predictive. It's actually very scientific. It's essentially the lines in your hands and other things in your hands um, have a lot to do with how your brain is wired and the nerve endings that come from your brain to your hands. And then, of course, there's an intuitive element to it as well. So I kind of got cut I go right down the middle and I call myself a hand reader instead of palm reader.
Interesting. Well, to show everyone my shirt, I wore my Vitruvian Man because, the Vitruvian Man is something about like the Fibonacci sequence pulling a man out to growth. The planets are in the Fibonacci sequence. And, there's something about like the shape of the ear and the nose also extrapolate out to the limbs. And so I do believe in that extrapolation from brainstem to hand, just even planetarily. Like it
Mhm.
might not be. So tell us more about the scientific connection between brain and hand.
The scientific connection is that there are more nerve endings from your brain to your hands than any other part of your body. And of course, we know the right hand has to do with the left brain, and the left hand has to do with the right brain. Um, but also, studies have shown that we get more information through our hands than from our eyes and ears combined. So I call myself a nerd around all this stuff. Um, because I look at all the science, I look at brain stuff, I look at everything about fingerprints. There's all these scientific studies about finger lengths, and hormones and all kinds of stuff. So I look at all of it, but I also love the old part of it because there's totally all the astrology is also in your hands as well.
Yeah.
So I love combining those things because it's like bringing the past into the present and connecting the present with the past. And it's just so wonderful that this has been around for so long, and then we can adapt it to our modern way of living.
Interesting. I had on my list of questions, but I thought it was like a dumb question, which was what happens when you give someone a high five? Like, is there a bunch of information that comes through your hand?
Well, I don't know about a high five necessarily, but I certainly look at hand gestures and the way people hold their hands, the way they use them when they talk. All of that gives me information. So I don't have to have somebody put their hand out in front of me and people when they think about reading hands, they think of the lines, and there's so much more than the lines. So much more. You can look at people's mounds, which is the and back to front, which is we call it the energy supply, right? Back to front,
Check
like
out
how
my
thick.
mound, Jay-Z.
Whoa, nice mound. Look at
Right, like
that.
how thick are they? And
Oh,
and
you got
I
a
look at the
thick mound.
and if it's thick or if it's like really like flat, that tells me lots of stuff. And then there's colors. You can see the skin color tells me a lot of things. And the finger lengths, and our thumbs are so important. It's what separates us from the animal kingdom.
My
My
fingers are
fingers are
longer than
really long.
yours. Dude, makes
There's
me want to
so much.
do this.
There's layers and layers and layers and layers to this. Um,
So in
just like astrology, right?
totally, well, and I know you're into astrology, so we want to get to that. In astrophysiognomy, which is the study of how people look according to their charts, there are different hand shapes for the different elements, like box, like,
Yep.
like Earth hands
Yep.
are more
We work
boxy.
with the elements and the hand shapes too.
Okay,
Yep.
what do you know about that?
Well, the square palm, of course, is the earthy palm. But, we also look at the finger lengths in relation to the palm. Are the fingers longer than the palm? Are the fingers the same length as the palm? Is the palm long, or is it and even when the palm is long and it's oblong, sometimes the fingers are shorter than that, sometimes they're longer. So then we get different hand shapes. And on top of that, there are hand archetypes well beyond just those elemental shapes. So we have different archetypes that my teacher came up with. And of course, we, as all of us who've studied with him, we come up with our own as we start to meet people, because there's always something you're going to see that you've never seen before.
Interesting. Interesting. I remember when you read my palm, I had like a star on my palm. I don't know what that means, but
Depends on where you have it. Stars are marks of giftedness. There's a bunch of different places you can have them in your palm, and they represent sacred contracts, because basically the nature of a gift is that it must be given. The universe doesn't give out that level of talent unless you have promised on an unconscious level that you are going to share it with the world.
wow.
And like any contract, there are clauses in your contract about what happens if you don't live up to the terms.
Wow. Wow, as a teleologist, I really like that, where you're like, you are required to manifest your life purpose or you're in trouble. I like that.
Right. Well, and then the other part of the life purpose that we haven't talked about in terms of hands are the fingerprint,
Yeah.
which is the first thing I read when I see people's hands, because the fingerprints are formed complete at 16 weeks after conception.
Wow.
Oh,
So
really?
in the
Oh,
womb.
You feel like that's when the
wow.
person is like ensouled, like when their soul's in their body?
So I use
These 4 months,
I look
huh?
at life purpose there. So I mean, there's different ideas about that. So what I like to say is, whether I can't say that's when they're ensouled, but I believe that's when one of three times their life purpose is revealed to the soul. This is how I put it.
Hmm.
So because I actually work with three systems. One is, the main one I work with, of course, is the hands and the fingerprints. At 16 weeks, 5 months before you take your first breath, is the first time your life purpose is revealed. Then I look at the life purpose in the natal chart as well.
Hmm.
So I feel like at the moment of birth, your life purpose is revealed in another way.
Hmm.
And I've read hundreds of these where I've looked at them both for the same person, to do my research, to make sure that I'm not like talking out my what.
Hmm.
When I say that what's in your fingerprints is in your chart, they don't disagree.
Never? They never disagree?
No, I have never seen them disagree. They may reveal it in different terms.
Wow, that's
Like they
amazing.
may say more, one may say more about it from, about, they may describe it differently, but it's never different. And then the third system I use is this type of numerology based on Kabbalistic alphabet.
Mm.
It's based on gematria, which is
Gotcha.
the Hebrew way of assigning numbers to letters.
Yeah.
And this is a system I brought in just recently because someone did one of those readings for me, and I just had one of those moments.
Hmm.
And it also did not disagree with what's in my fingerprints, what's in my chart. And so I like to say the third time and it's based on your birth name, the name that's given to you, because in the Kabbalah, they believe the world was created from sound.
Interesting. Yeah, so in Vedic astrology, they have this thing where it's like if you see three fates or three repetitions of an indication of fate, like it's a fated fate. And so well, you're kind of like you're checking the fates in three different systems, and then you're saying like this is your life purpose. It is, so that's actually very powerful what you're doing there.
Yeah, and I love doing all the readings for the same person. Um, they're not getting they get different information. We go deeper with each level of those. Like if I were to tell somebody to do all three readings, the order I would do them in is the hands first, because it gives you not just the life purpose, but it tells you where you're at now. Then if you want to go deeper into what the way I look at the chart, I call it past life astrology is the way I work with it. So I look into what are the karmic things you've brought with you, what are the things you came to either overcome or learn or add to your soul consciousness in this lifetime because you didn't have the opportunities in previous lifetimes. And then the third one, to me, the numerology based on the Kabbalah really brings it to the spiritual level. And so I like to, and it makes more sense for people to do that one later in life, just like in the Kabbalah, they always tell you that they didn't, traditionally, they didn't teach it to anyone under the age of 40 because they felt that they didn't have enough life experience and it could cause them to go mad.
Interesting.
So,
So are you
yeah.
looking at the South Node and then like the natal aspects from South Node to find the karmic stuff, or what is your approach to the chart?
So the first thing I look at is the 12th house. That's a house of karma. I look at their planets in the 12th house. I look at retrograde planets as redos.
Okay.
And I look at Saturn, of course, Lord of Karma. And yes, I do bring in the North Node and the South Node, but it is not the primary thing I look at. And I also, in some charts, there are interceptions, and I will look to see intercepted signs and also the houses that have the same, whenever you have an intercepted chart, two houses have the same sign on the cusp and the same opposite. So I look at those. To me, those represent superpowers. And then my favorite thing is to end that reading with the part of fortune.
That is so
Because I
crazy.
look at that as the pot of gold, it's your karmic reward when you do the work.
That is so crazy, Jay-Z. Like when I do a reading, I don't look at any of the like not even one of those things when I do a reading. So it's like
Oh,
you,
really?
someone could go to Leslie and get totally different information about their life path. That is so crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll bet it's a similar thing though, as the like this way of looking at it, you see the same thing as this way of looking at it if both of the systems have validity, right?
Well,
Yeah, they
and
have
maybe they
to.
pluck out different things about the person can learn more nuances about their life path from different eyes, you know. Sorry, Lynn.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm really curious though about the name given at birth thing because a lot of people change their names. So it's like, why is the birth name that important? It seems like that's what your parents thought your path should be.
Well, yes and no, but in some way we could say that that word, the name was whispered in their ear, right? Um, just like you, when you have a natal chart, you're born to those parents at a certain time. The mom gives birth at a certain time. People will argue with you that it could be random, and what happens if you have a C-section, blah 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 blah. Well, we all know that those things are not inconsequential. So the same thing with the birth name. It's the name. It's like it's been whispered in the ear of the parent
Okay,
to give it. But if you change your name, there is what we call an overlay. So you can continue the reading to look at the name change, which I have changed my name. So and of course, a lot of women change their name if they get married, they choose to change their name, or people get, I just changed mine because nobody could pronounce mine.
Well, I've changed my name as well, which is probably why I kind of honed in on that.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
I've
whoever
changed
the
my
people,
name actually more than once.
yeah, and that happens. I've read for people. I've done that reading for people who've changed their name multiple times.
Mhm.
And we look at, it's called an overlay. So you look at what is the name change do? How does it relate to the original name? What does it highlight? Has it helped you along the the journey? And you can even work with people who are intending to change their name to help choose the best energy that way.
Hmm.
And you can help there's a part of that system that works with people who are starting a business to name their business so that it has the energy that they would like it to project.
Mhm.
I really,
Interesting.
I don't want, I have to tell a story about the name being whispered because, okay, I know this show is not about me at all, but I just really want to tell this story. So, when my baby was born, we thought about her name the whole time I was pregnant, blah, 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 blah. Went through all these names. I was like, I don't know, I've never met her. I don't know. And like when I was giving birth, like her dad goes, "What is her name?" And I go, "Angeline." And like I never even heard that name before. And it came through me. And then it was her name. Like, so I actually am have experienced what you're talking about of like the name was whispered to me, like I
Hmm.
don't even know where it came from, honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So, I mean, there's all kinds of things we could say. What about this? What about that? But, we don't know how it works.
well, I mean, it's interesting because you're dealing with other life things like birth and death and, soul contracts and stuff. And I think, the question for psychics, I mean, I don't know if you consider yourself a psychic, but you are dealing with psychic matters, is like, how do you know about soul contracts and how do you know what happens on the other side? And like, where did you learn that?
What do you mean about like the soul contracts with the gift markings?
Yeah, or like
Uh,
with anything.
that's part of the hand reading system.
Oh,
Um,
hmm,
that's just part of the whole big picture system that goes with what I learned from my teacher.
hmm.
Um, and I do consider myself psychic. I mean, I saw my first dead person when I was 6. So,
Wow.
I mean, and I hear stuff all the time. And sometimes when I'm looking at hands, I'll hear things that aren't related to anything in the hand, but I get told you have to mention this. And I do, when I talk to the person, I do differentiate that I heard that instead of saw it in their hands.
Oh, interesting.
Um,
Wow, so you're like
because
a hand reader plus.
yes, 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 yes.
So,
Yeah.
JC, did you have what are they called? There's a certain kind of question you have.
Oh, I think it's like questions of value.
Oh, okay.
Uh, and anyway, yeah, here so, because I did have some questions, and because we want to get to know you better, Leslie. Like, who are you? Who
Okay.
are you? So, my first question is, uh, where do you do like your best thinking or clearing your thoughts or visioning? Well,
Hmm.
like,
Um,
when? Do you have a process for that?
um, yes, but it's not easily described because okay, so I'm a triple water sign. I'm a Scorpio with a Cancer rising and a Pisces moon, and I have like no air in my chart, no air houses in my chart. It's all water, 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 water. So, uh, I've been hearing stuff from the time I was little. I actually thought they were going to take me away and lock me up because I had a grandmother who was mentally ill, and I thought, well, God, I'm hearing voices. They're going to take me away like her.
Hmm.
So I do it best in silence. And being the world we live in, that's not always available. Um, so
Hmm.
I take it wherever I can.
Hmm.
And so I like the silence. I don't like I mean I'm maybe the only person on the planet who doesn't really love music.
Wow.
I prefer silence. I love when the electricity goes out. Oh my gosh. Because that's true silence, right? We don't realize all the hums we hear all the time.
Wow.
So I look for it then. So I often do it like late at night, early mornings. I take those times. Um, it often happens when what I like to do is I will read something or hear something and then something else over here, and I have this thing going on where I'm like going kind of like the Kabbalists did, where they would go, well, this thing has the numerical value of this, and this other thing has the numerical value of this, so they must be related. But for me, it's not about the numerical value. It's just more about the something where I start relating this and that and the other thing. And then I start coming up with new processes, which is kind of how I came up with my way of reading charts because I was doing traditional astrology and I needed to figure out a way to make it work with what I saw in the hands. So I came up with a different way of reading. Um, but and actually, what I used to do is I used to paint. I would go and I would paint what was going on up here. Then I got allergic to paint.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And so that was actually the most devastating thing that's happened in my life. Worse than I've had a lot of traumas, but that was the most traumatic, was not being able to paint because that was so much part of my process.
Wow.
Um, so
Awesome.
I've had to find other ways to do it. So I'm doing it a little more through writing and journaling.
Interesting. Well, your water signs are so pictorial. Like I feel like, making a painting is like drawing down a vision or from my experience, the water signs get a lot of visions. And do you think in pictures?
Often,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
I could feel your aura when I met you in person recently. I could feel the water in your aura. Like I'm a Pisces moon, so I'm really sensitive to feeling like the plasma and auras, especially. So yeah, it was fun to be in your aura space. I get kind of overstimmed by water auras actually because I can feel so much plasma. I'm like, and then I'm trying to like act normal as I'm like feeling stuff. But yeah, I can attest that Leslie is very watery, and that is a true empath and intuitive, and can feel you when you sit there next to her. Now, do you read in person or over Zoom?
Mostly, well, 2 years ago, I moved to a rural area, which means that I do a lot more of my work over Zoom. Um,
Hmm. You were really busy
I
at the fair we were at. There, your table was popping.
yeah, the last three fairs I've been at, I mean, there have been times where I haven't had time to take a sip of water, which has been wonderful because I love being able to do this with people. It's what I love. I don't know what to say about that, but um, I I do like doing the fairs because I do get to see people in person and hold their hands. But I did come up with a way to read long distance long before Zoom existed, long before COVID made us all have to stay away from each other. So because I wanted to expand my reach, back in 2007, I came up with a way to send people a packet so they could print their hands for me. And I print everybody's hands, except at the fairs or events where I'm just doing short little readings. But when I'm working people one on one for a full session, I print their hands. I think you may remember me printing your hands.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons we print people's hands is that the lines will change. They
Oh,
change because they're um, correspond to our brain. Our brains are plastic, and we can change our beliefs, and we can change our habits, and we can change our behaviors. And then we get new connections that go in the brain, and those all get reflected here. And I've actually worked with people who were in early stages of dementia and watched lines disappear. So all all the handprints are dated, and I have people come back and we print them again and compare. And I had somebody recently who came back 17 years after her original handprints were done.
wow. Wow.
Almost to the day, actually. It was kind of cool.
Wait, so if I like carve something into my hand, would it change my thinking?
Um, yes, in a way. It will change, yes. Um, so I do work with people the other way, like when I work with people and they come up against a challenge where they're having some real difficulty making a change that they want to make, I will often talk to them about, taking your thumbnail and drawing this line in or connecting these lines. Or sometimes I've talked about people a lot about using thumb yoga because thumb is our will. It's our willpower.
Whoa, you
Um,
need to do thumb yoga, Jay-Z.
and actually,
Yeah,
when people
that's
hold their
great.
thumbs like this, that's a sign they're letting life kind of happen around them. When you see people whose thumbs are out like this, they're the doers who are making life happen around them. And so
They're
when I
lion's claw.
Is that
yeah,
the
so
line?
actually, finger positions and whether they're twisted or turned, I'm actually in the middle of finishing a blog post about someone who's in the news quite a bit right now. Who's so you can also read the chakras in the hand. So the thumb is the fifth, sixth, and seventh chakra. So this is the crown here, which I call your spiritual will, right? So their crown on all their photos, I can't even do it. It's like I have to do this to make it happen because I couldn't do it if I tried. But in all their photos, this famous person's thumb is like this. So their willpower is not, they're not following through.
Wow.
So
I'm
on
gonna
their
give the world a
intentions,
thumbs up. I'm just gonna be like, yeah, Will on the world.
yeah. So, I mean, everything.
Wow. This is
um,
so cool. So what is there a chakra in your pinky?
no, the chakras all live in this, they're here in this area, this part of the hand. They are the parts of the hand you can't touch. The parts you can touch with your thumb are conscious parts of your being.
Okay.
Oh,
All the chakras are in the parts you can't get your thumb to touch.
Really? Well, because
gotcha.
I was gonna ask about that because we have like a big chakra in the middle of the palm, right? Isn't there, or is it?
I don't read it that way. I'm looking at the traditional seven that we look at up the spine, and the corresponding areas you would see where they would look in the hands, the areas that correspond. And I know that there are people who talk about other chakras. I don't work with them because there's only so many things I can talk about with someone.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Wait, JC, do you have another question?
Well, yeah, okay. So, my
I don't
next
know if I
question is,
answered the last one. Right.
oh
Sorry.
yeah, you
Yeah,
did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in silence is how you do and now
All
you're
right.
and you were painting and now journaling.
I'll make
Yeah.
you a
Sure.
pen
Sorry.
for your journal, Leslie. I'm just starting to make pens, so
Oh,
Cool.
awesome.
okay.
So go ahead, JC. Sorry I interrupted.
Oh yeah, well, I guess what I was now wanting to ask was like a kind of like in relationship between you and the stuff that you do and like Moira Press school for, astrologers and this stuff done there, like where do you think the overlap is and the kind of do you think that there's like a similar mission or yeah, I guess how do
It
you feel?
sounds it sounds like it to me. I mean, my goal uh okay, I have another story. One of the things that happened um that really made me commit to this path was my mom died when she was 54. And really uh, she really didn't love being a mom. She wanted a career. And she was born in the 20s. So, she went through that whole period where, women weren't given those opportunities, and she grew up poor. So she just all she really wanted to do was go to college, have a career. She kept saying it was too late, it was too late, it was too late. I kept telling her, no, it's not too late. She finally had a job where they offered to send her to college. And she was in her early 50s. And I'd never seen her so happy. And then 2 years after she started college, she got cancer that was lung and bone, and it spread really fast.
Hmm.
And
Huh.
I felt like she had a lot of regrets when she left. I was with her when she passed, and I felt she had a lot of regrets.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And so it became my mission kind of at that point. I don't know if I defined it at that moment, but it became clear to me later that what I really wanted to do was help people not have those regrets, because there was always this excuse about waiting and why you can't, and this thing has to be in place first. And you hear all those from everybody all the time. And my what I really feel I am here trying to help people with is to not sacrifice that. And I honestly believe that in order to fulfill our purpose, our spiritual mission, even in a lifetime when we're here in service, which I believe the more advanced souls are all here in service in some way, you still have to be in service to the self. So there's you in order to really, really contribute to the world, you still have to take care of yourself. It's that old, like on the airline with the put your mask on first thing. Um, but I don't want I want to help people not have those regrets. I want people to recognize who they are, to be as authentic as possible, to live their truth, to walk their truth. And I think that is really what helps the world as a whole, is that when the more authentic we are, the more we are coming from that place of who we really are, the more we can do to make everyone and the whole world and the universe and nature and all of those things better. It brings a level of internal freedom, so you don't care if someone's judging you anymore, and it gives you that ability. So I feel like it was my mom's early death with lots of regrets that really pushed me to feel like it's important to find meaning in the world.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming that I don't know your reasons for doing what you do, but I'm pretty sure that it's that what the end result is kind of similar.
It's so interesting that you say that because I think you're onto something that, like, I was a little bit horrified by that question. I'm like, don't make her like do that because she doesn't know the Moira Press really. But I was like, but also good question, right? Is like, I think you're right. Like, we are life path, we're life path and purpose development theorists, basically. That's what teleology is. It looks at the development of a person into themselves, essentially. And
Hmm.
astrology is based in this ancient theory of teleology, and it really is where it came from, right? Well, so and it's funny because when I have all these like overly humble students and artists where I'll be like, so what's your life purpose? They're like, I don't know, like I'm a total zero and all this stuff. And I was like, do you know that you could die tomorrow? Like, and I actually, whenever someone dies, like an artist dies, I'm like, okay, like Richie Valens just, I mean, I don't know who just died, but I'm like, do you realize that literally tomorrow you could die, and if you didn't fulfill your purpose, like what would have happened? So it's funny that you bring up your mom's story, and bless her heart, and I'm really sorry she had your mom died, or passed early. But I so agree with you, is that helping people define their life purpose is the passion of this school. I mean, it really is helping people grow. And part of the reason we even put people on TV is it for people who are already highly developed like you, if you put them in front of a crowd, now they can develop even further. Like that's part of the development that we do, is helping people get seen in front of the crowd. And so that was a good question. Okay. I have a question for you. Um, JC and I do not tell each other our questions, so we're just rogue surprising each other. So I'm really interested in the poem and the planetary placements on the poem,
Hmm.
because when we do remedy theory, like put on crystals and things like that, we might put like if we wanted to boost a paltry Jupiter, for example, we'll put a Jupiter stone, in the Jupiter metal on the Jupiter finger. So can you tell us a little bit about the planetary placements on the poem?
Well, those go back to ancient palmistry. And actually hand reading before it became that kind of cartoonish version of, this is how many children you're gonna um, have, and uh-oh, you have a short lifeline, you're gonna die young stuff. Um, it actually was used to help figure out who people were and what their role was in like the villages and things like that, and what the Kabbalists use it to help the students so that they would know what level they're at and where where to kind of take them on the journey. So kind of like astrology, the same thing. It before like the newspapers printed horoscopes, that made everybody think that it was garbage, right? So it's the same kind of thing. Um, but the planetary stuff does go way, way, way back. And I honestly think the way I think about it is even more connected to the original mythology of the planetary names. So, for instance, the middle finger is Saturn, right? So Saturn, as we know, the planet has those rings, and Saturn is the taskmaster, and Saturn is about structure, and Saturn is often about what are we tasked to do in this lifetime, but also what are we, but it's also about duty and responsibility, and the same thing in the hands. It's the finger of integrity. But also, it's the finger of making money, even though, like in astrology, money is usually associated with Venus. But when you go back to the old myths, in some of the very, very old myths of Saturn, he was the banker.
Hmm.
They didn't call him a banker, but he was in charge of the storehouses, um, which is what they used for trade before we all, had money. Um, so to me, it's even more mythological than planetary. But all of the original planets are in here. You've got what the thumb isn't assigned to any planet, but I like to think of it kind of as Earth and the connection to heaven and Earth. But Jupiter, the index finger, is about leadership. Jupiter was a ruling god and its expansion. So Saturn, I already talked about. The middle finger, the ring finger is Apollo, which is the sun. He was a sun god. Mercury, oh my gosh. You could Pinky is the smallest finger, but Mercury, well, look at his mythology is rich. And look at how much we worry about Mercury going retrograde.
Yeah.
There's so much about Mercury. And then when you bring in the science piece of it, what's really interesting is that they often ask people, if you had to have one finger cut off, which one would you pick? And people often think they would pick the pinky because it's the smallest finger. But if you
Ooh.
actually cut your pinky off, you couldn't grip anything. There's so many things you couldn't do. They said it's the worst finger to lose is
Really?
the
Wow.
pinky. So, I think that's really interesting that it's the smallest finger, and yet it's,
Wait, which would you
yeah,
cut
wait.
off if you had to cut one off, Leslie?
Oh, middle maybe. Oh, no. Jerry Garcia.
Saturn.
Jerry
No.
Garcia was missing his middle.
Oh,
Interesting.
really? That's interesting.
Yeah, he
I was
managed to still play great guitar, right?
Yeah.
interesting. I was thinking like
And
the Jupiter finger being right here, when people wear a ring right there, it has such a different effect than if people wear like a pinky ring has a big effect too. Like it's kind of, I don't know. It
well,
makes you,
yeah, I do a whole thing. I have a whole class I teach, a lecture I teach on rings and on each finger and what they mean.
oh my God, how can our students get to that class? Because we do a lot of Ronies. I mean, that's our jam.
Oh, I've only done that one in person. I don't have it in digitally done yet.
Well, if you ever want to teach that class, we could hold you at the school maybe or
Yeah,
something.
it's
But
a real short one. It's fun.
yeah,
It's
that's
short, but it's fun. Actually, I have a YouTube video on that.
oh, okay. And what's your YouTube channel?
It's called Hand Readers Guild.
Okay, Hand Readers Guild.
So I
Well,
do have one. I think the title of that video is Rings on Your Fingers.
oh, interesting. Okay. I know our students will be into that because so much of remedies, a big thing we do is astrological remediation. That's like what our
Yeah.
students really study. And so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember we talked about that when
so
I
much
saw
of
you at the
that
fair.
is gems and rings and things like that. And so
Yeah.
we don't really have somebody who knows about that stuff around. So it's really cool that you do. Okay. So that was my question. JC, do you have another question?
You ask another question, I'll ask one after.
Okay, I have a question which is about about couples and palms. Like, do you ever analyze couples as far as their palms go?
I have. I mean, certainly we'd always look at, with romantic couples, we're always going to look at the heart line. Um, just like there's like four directions, four elements, all of that stuff. There's four elements in the heart line types. And there are ones that work together better than others, but it's not hard and fast. Um, so
Hmm.
I always look at that, but I also look at other things. For instance, if you have two people who have strong Jupiter fingers, you're going to have um, issues around who wants to be in charge in the relationship. And I actually looked at two people who, two women who came to me who were looking to be business partners, and they were both chiefs.
They're like, you, no, you, no,
Yeah, they
me.
were both chiefs. And so, we had to talk about like where their strengths were and who was going to be in charge in which area, because it was going to be hard for them to not want to be the one who's like calling all the shots, both of them.
Inter-
So, yes, you can do things like that.
Interesting. Okay. Um, yeah, and then well, okay. Yeah, and then I guess another, let's see. Well, okay, I know that you've addressed this a little bit, but um, what is the lifeline legit?
What do you mean? Is it legit? It's
Like,
not a death line.
okay.
It is not a death line. And I have the world's shortest lifeline. I don't know if I can see if you can see it on
What,
here. Here's my lifeline. It ends right there. You see
Whoa.
that? It ends right there. Um,
where does it
and
start? Wait, where is it, Lifeline?
okay,
It's,
the lifeline is the one that go or surrounds the ball of the thumb.
oh, okay. So
So
mine's like this. And yours
mine
ends
ends
right
here.
there.
It's about halfway.
I see.
Wow.
You
Mine
should
is
be
And
there
so
already.
it should come all the way to the wrist. Textbook, they say, should come all the way around down and into the
I
wrist.
see.
Um, it's not a death line. It There are many, many reasons you could have a short lifeline. It's, by the way, the lifeline is the corresponds to the first chakra, your groundedness. How are in your body are you? The lifeline is the sign of your vitality.
Oh.
It's a conduit of your energy. So if it's not all the way down to your wrist, ungroundedness could be an issue. Triple water sign here. Hello. All right.
You're
Um,
grounded, Leslie. You're
well,
grounded.
my other hand is grounded, but I actually have something else. There's other things that could go on. So my lifeline is actually a part of three, a combination of three lines, that short lifeline that we call the marker of the quester, meaning you're always on a quest.
Hmm.
And so that means my lifeline's not going to probably get much longer because I will be on a quest for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
Um,
What's your current
so
quest?
my current quest
No, your current
is
quest.
to write the books that I've been waiting for way too long.
Interesting. Yeah, books. Books are a bear, man.
Yeah. So one of
What
them's a memoir. Um,
Wow.
and two of them have to relate to the systems I use. But yeah, so there's many, many reasons your lifeline will not be textbook. And honest to goodness, I have the handprints of all the people I've read. I've got volumes and volumes. I've got them in binders. I've got thousands of handprints. And when I teach, I go through the prints to find examples of what I'm trying to teach. And I was teaching a class on the chakras recently. And when I was looking for a good example of a textbook first chakra, clean, clear lifeline, I had to go through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hands to find one.
Wow.
It's rare.
Wow.
It's rare. But I have to tell you, I did go to New Orleans many, many, many years ago, and they have a place called Reader Square where all these readers, tarot and palm readers, are sitting around outside. And I just randomly picked a palm reader for fun to sit down with. And she looked at my lifeline, and her eyes got the size of saucers. And then she looked at me and she goes, "Here's your lifeline, long life." And I just went, okay.
Oh, yeah,
Was she
yeah.
lying? Was she lying?
Shyster. She
Yeah.
was a
Yeah. Oh,
shyster.
she was cold reading me. And of course, I was keeping the complete
Yeah,
poker
yeah.
face. So she kept looking at my ex-husband
Oh
to
my
cold
God.
read me through him.
Oh,
My God. What
no.
is cold? Is cold reading
Fraud.
just mean you do a reading on the spot, or does it mean you're reading for
No,
like
it's
facial
it's that
expression?
kind of it's something they teach you on how to like look at people and figure out what to say next. It's not a good thing.
Oh, interesting. All right, we only do hot reading here.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're
right,
hot
right.
readers.
Oh my
Exactly.
God, we're the most ill-behaved school ever. We're adult school. Well, astrology covers all topics. Scorpios are everywhere. Okay. Jay-Z.
All right. Okay. So my other question is kind of like a vision question for the future, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, like how could we kind of combine or co-create or cross-pollinate, right? And so, Andy, I guess you're gonna put up Leslie's info in the in for this video, right? And then also yeah, we'll be able to reach out and watch stuff on the Hand Readers Guild. Like
Hmm.
how can our students like learn, extract your wisdom, and how can, we share what we have, right? So yeah, the rings on your fingers video, or what are other ways that we can learn from you and you can learn from us?
Well, I am really fascinated by, and would love to know more about the different ways you do the remediation. Because I've come up with a few over time, like I've talked about, teaching people to manipulate their hands to send impulses back up to the brain. And I've also occasionally worked with flower essences with people. Um, but I know there's so many other ways to do it. I'm curious about how different ways you do that. Um, I do have the about 25 videos in the Hand Readers Guild YouTube channel, and I am actually teaching a um, people. It's coming up actually pretty quickly. How to do this whole system? It's 4 days, 2 complete weekends.
Wow.
So I am doing that in the last 2 weekends of June, and I'm gonna see about scheduling that again in the fall because I've had some people tell me summer is not a great time. People who are interested.
Wait, is
But
that in person?
that is on Zoom.
Oh, okay, right on.
Oh my God, I bet
Yeah,
our
it's
students would be interested in that. So wait, so that's a 2 weekend, um,
yeah, Friday, Saturday, and Friday, Saturday. It's without my calendar in front of me. I think it's the 21st and 22nd, and then the following weekend. And then after those 4 lessons, each person who takes this will get a follow-up time with me because, like when I learned, I had to go out and read 100 hands because you learn the system, but as you know, you learn more from doing the reading.
hmm,
And with hands in particular, you have to look at them and no, you're going to see like I still, after 3 decades, still see things I've never seen before when someone sits down with me and just go, well, that's a new one.
hmm,
Um, because we're all built different, right? Uh, and of course, as as we work on life purpose, we know everybody has something unique to bring.
yeah. Well, and it's
So each person will get a follow up, which we'll schedule after they've read a bunch of hands, so they can come back and get some coaching.
interesting. So you not only read hands, but you teach people how to read hands.
Yes, I have been doing it for a while. I haven't done it I haven't run this training in a while, but I have done it um,
Hmm,
quite a few times. And
interesting.
I have said a lot of people have taken it who just want to enrich their spiritual practices or learn about themselves. But I have kind of birthed a few other hand readers out into the world, and that's really one of my goals.
Hmm.
Also, one of my current quests
Yeah.
uh, is to make this more accessible. The teachers at the school where I went uh, are, because of their certifications, have to teach a certain way and have to charge a certain fee. And I kind of got heard that there's that limits how many people can actually do it. So I'm trying to come up with a way where it makes it accessible and affordable.
Interesting. So, Jay-Z, I mean, I'm not so interested in how Leslie can share us with her crowd. I mean, that's not, I mean, that's a really good question, but it's like I'm more interested as a teacher in putting her in front of our students to, because I know that a lot of our students would be interested in learning the palm side of things, because it's like the life path and purpose is the shared, that you uncovered with your last question is like we have this shared look into life path and purpose. And I think, a lot of astrologers also do palm reading. And then I think if they could learn more from Leslie about the chakras in the palms and then all of those planetary placements and then like what can be done with the palms and like the moving around of the palms to help people with their life path. And like I do think there is some remedy opportunity in there. But yeah, I really think, to any of our students who are listening, like if you want to learn palmistry, which I know it's called hand reading according to Leslie, but astrologers have historically also studied palmistry.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Leslie is the best palm person or hand reader I've ever personally met. Like, it's and
Thank
this
you.
isn't like carnival, this isn't carnival style hand reading. This is like elevated style. Because I heard her at the MeWe Fair, which we'll have to ask you if you're gonna be at other MeWe fairs, but I heard her, and just like the level at which she's working is, on par with, the students at the school. So yeah, if anyone wants to learn, please check out Leslie's information. So now, are you going to be at a MeWe fair?
I think the next one I'm going to be doing is Seaside, and I will probably do Ocean Shores, which is I've met wonderful people at Ocean Shores, and it's very close to my current home, which is really nice.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because
And I'll definitely do Olympia again. So yeah, at least those three and potentially more.
yeah. So if you want to meet Leslie in person, I encourage you to actually go out to those MeWe fairs. Those are actually really fun. There's tons of readers and booths and everything like that.
It's a
And
great community.
okay, and then where can they find you online? What is your website or
It's my name, lesliezemenek.com, and it's you can see it right there. Is how to spell it on
right
my
there?
Zoom.
It's over there. Yeah, yeah.
So just smush those two together and add the .com, and that's where you'll find me.
Okay, Leslie Zemenek. Now, how long have you been doing this?
Um, a little over 3 decades.
Okay, so 30 years of hand. So it's not just that she'll be looking at your palm, she'll be looking at your palm as compared to thousands of palms and people and all that kind of stuff. All right, well, we have 5 minutes. I'm out of questions and it sounds like you asked all your questions. Leslie, is there anything you want our students to know?
Um, what do I want? So many things. Such
Mm,
a broad question. Um, Only that I think one of the reasons I love this system is that it's so immediate. It's on your body. It's on your body. And it's literally right there. Uh, and I also wanted people to know that I mean it's incredibly accurate. I have had people within 5 minutes of sitting down with me cry. And they cry because they feel seen.
mm, wow.
And so this is one of the reasons I love this system is because it's it gets past
Mm,
all the barriers, because we all have them. We all put up little protections and barriers, and um, we hide parts of ourselves because the cultural expectations or because someone in our early life said we weren't good enough. But this system gets past all of those, um, but in a way that's compassionate and kind and helpful.
mm,
Um, and I have seen it change people's lives.
nice. All right, one last question is, what's it mean when someone has sweaty palms?
It means I'm going to have trouble printing them.
It means you made them nervous.
Sometimes some people just have, I mean, there are many reasons people have sweaty palms, just like they have sweaty the rest of them. I mean, there's obviously sometimes some medical issues with that. Um, but just to address that, not necessarily just sweaty palms, but I mean things like psoriasis or scars or other skin conditions. I read all those. They're not coincidental. They tell me something.
Wow.
So I look at all of that. I look at scars. I look at um, calluses. I look at injuries. I look at dry skin. All of those things. It's all has information. Everything has information in it if you know how to look at it.
Interesting. Okay, I have to ask before we hang up here, how much is a palm analysis? How much does it cost?
So my one-on-one sessions are 90 minutes and they're $244. They include the the prints and a recording.
Okay. Okay. And that's something you can have forever. I mean, it's like you get your palm analyzed, you get to have it forever. All
And
right.
I'm telling you, that woman came back after 17 years. I've also had people tell me that, the first reading they had with me, they were recorded on cassette tapes, and that they found it so valuable, they had to go out and find a way to buy a cassette player so they could listen to it again. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good testimonial.
Nice. And then how much is it at the MeWe Fair?
So at the MeWe fairs, I do generally 20 minutes at a time. Some people choose to go longer, but for the basic 20 minutes, I actually lowered my price this year because of what's going on with the world and the economy, to $45 for the 20 minutes.
Oh, that is really, and you really pack it in 20 minutes. So
I do pack it in 20 minutes.
yeah, so all right, well, that's a wonderful hour long episode with Leslie. And thank you so much, Leslie. I hope we didn't scare you with our questions, but
Oh no, it was really fun. It was really great hanging out with you and conversing with you and sharing all the information.
all right, well, I'll see
So,
you maybe at the next Olympia MeWe.
okay,
All right, take care.
bye.
Bye.